Welcome back to another episode of Your Favorite HR Podcast. I'm Hiba, your host and resident hater. And today we're talking about a topic that shouldn't be controversial, but somehow still is, being authentic at work. Because let's be honest, most workplaces either treat authenticity like a performance or they punish you the second you actually show any sort of authenticity. And we will get into the bring your whole self to work debate with today's guest. And I'm so excited she's here. She was on a podcast ages ago. So this is like a return, like maybe a few seasons ago you joined me. My guest today is Madison Butler, author of Let Them See You. And we're getting into what authenticity actually looks like in the modern workplace, what it is, what it isn't, why it can feel risky, and how leaders can actually build environments where being real doesn't feel like a weird career penalty. Madison, welcome back to the pod. I'm like way more professional this time.
I'm so excited to be here. I am not professional. You can't tell, but my
that's right.
backwards says raise hell.
We also hate the word professional. Both of us have a shared hatred over people telling us. You know, one of my earliest bosses told me my hair wasn't professional, and that trauma really carried me for like 10 plus years.
You'll appreciate this. Maybe I got onto an interview, 60 days ago, and her first response was, "Ooh, your hair." And not like, "Ooh, your hair." It was like, "Ooh, your hair." And I immediately got a rejection when we got off the call, and I was like, "Oh."
In 2026, we're still doing this?
But I was like, "Wait, you didn't look me up? I look everybody up."
And your tag is like the blue. Is it still the blue-haired unicorn?
No, it is currently the crash out coach. But my hair is still in fact blue in all of my assets. So
in this year, like in the year 2026, people are still doing that.
And I wasn't even sure if it was the color or if it was really big. Like I had my hair like down and like big, big, big. So I wasn't sure if it was the bigness, the blueness, both. But it wasn't good, however.
You really set her off. It is wild to me. People also, I think I've told you this, people make comments about my hair all the time. Like when they see me in person, they're like, "Oh, it's like straight, but I wanted to see it curly." And I'm always like, I didn't know that you had a preference of my own hair. It's my hair. Can you just let me show up how I want to show up some days?
I do not understand people. I don't get the hair comment because I do tend to wear it curly. It's not the same, but I do get a lot of comments that people are really shocked that I'm very short.
How short are you? How tall are you? You're 5'2". You give really tall girl energy.
I have very long legs. If you see photos of me, I do in fact look like a tall girl. I am not a tall girl. I'm like 5'2" on like my absolute best day. That is the compliment most in person.
Really? Okay. Now then, the first time I meet you, because we've never met in person. Like we've known each other for how long? We still never met in person. I will not comment on your height, but that is you do not give 5'2" energy.
Wait, so when I met Zach Nunn in person, I was shooketh to find out that man is 6'3".
What?
Exactly.
Okay. Zach, do not be mad at us. Hear us out. I'm sorry, my guy. You do not give 6'3" energy.
The photos of us next to each other, I'll send them to you. I look like I'm this tall.
Whole foot gap between you two. Zach has also been on this podcast too. So listeners, if you've listened to previous episodes, Zach has been on 2 seasons ago. And we had a good time. He told a poop story within the first 5 minutes of the episode.
That sounds about right.
I was like, yeah, we can talk about poop. I don't care. He was like, can I curse on this? I was like, yeah, you can honestly, within reason, say most of what you want on this podcast. One thing I am doing this season, though, actually I do most of my seasons, I've been asking guests like an opening question, mostly because I'm nosy and I'm curious. So I've been asking everyone this season, what's one new thing you want to learn this year?
So I don't necessarily know if it's a new thing, but something that my partner recently called out, which I guess I knew about myself, is I really struggle to be present. Like I struggle to not be thinking about like immediately what I have to do next, or what's next, or how I manage that, or like I just can't get myself out of like future state to be like, ooh, enjoy this little slice of life that you have right now. So for me, I think being really present in my life, knowing that like, I don't know, the world could explode. So I might as well enjoy what it is that I have going on for myself right now. Even like as soon as my book came out, I was like, okay, I have to write a second one. I was like, wait, no, let me just like sit with the fact that I wrote a whole book and it came out and like give myself a moment. Additionally, I think I might like to ride a bike. So maybe I'll try to learn that this year.
Okay, I have so many questions. One about the not being in the moment. I too have been there where it's like you just like are scrolling aimlessly or you're forgetting that you're present. And so I've been doing a lot of like phone face down or phone in a different room when I'm like trying to do things like with my family or with people so that I can actually remind myself to be present in the moment too. Cause I think everyone struggles with that.
We did we rented a cabin, which again, I wouldn't do this again in November, like, don't take this advice from me. We rented a cabin with no electricity in Vermont,
Oh
in
God.
which I guess I didn't think about. I was like, "Oh, there's no electricity." I had to poop in an outhouse in November in Vermont. So so I don't necessarily wanna be that present, like, I don't wanna be that present with nature where I'm like, "Is a bear gonna get me?" But it was very nice to not have access to my cell phone, right? Like and for me, it's not even so much the technology as my brain is just always thinking about how I can continue to be productive.
Same.
Like, I'm really
Same.
bad at bed rotting, like, I'm so bad at staying in bed and just, like, binging Netflix, and I have so many friends who are really good at it, and when I do it, I, like, cannot help but feel guilty about doing it. And so trying to get myself out of that space, I think, is really hard, but something I'm intent on doing,
Yeah.
like, listening to my body when it wants to, like, chill.
Yeah, I feel that so much because I'm, like, always constantly thinking about work too, and I'm like, "What is this trap that I've trapped myself in?" Where it's, like, Sunday at 10 a.m. and I'm enjoying or, like, Saturday at 10 a.m. and I'm having, like, the best day, and my thought is like, "Oh, I could make that into content," or, "Oh, I forgot I didn't answer that email." Like, why is my brain always still thinking about work stuff over the weekend and at night?
Yep.
It's really bad. On the note of a bike, you don't know how to ride a bike?
No. I love spin class, though.
I feel like I learned to ride a bike as a kid, but, like, I think if you put me on a bike today, I would be like, "How do I do this?" Like a real I've also ride a stationary bike, but, like, a real bike I feel like I haven't ridden a real bike in, like, maybe 15 years.
My balance is not very good, so I don't think I'm very confident in my ability to do it well, which is why I've never done it because I hate being bad at things. Fun
Same.
fact about me, like, if I think I'm gonna be bad at it, I'm not gonna do it.
My problem is I'll, like, gaslight myself into thinking I could actually be good at it, like, I'll get mad at myself for thinking I won't be good at it, and then I'll gaslight myself into doing it, and that is how I ended up taking a 12-week adult tap dancing class. Which, let me tell you, as a woman in her at that time, I think I was in my 20s, you just, like, don't have loose ankles because you have to, like, walk around all day on your feet, and so when they're like, "Loosen your ankles to tap dance," I'm like, "I don't my body is not computing that. What do you how do I loosen this joint of which I move my f" I didn't it was not good.
I saw a meme yesterday that was like, "This is why I don't you shouldn't learn to ski in your 30s," and it was, like, someone just being dragged away on a sled, and it was like, "I met all the paramedics and almost Jesus." And I was like, "Yep, see? I don't need to be bad at things at this age. I cannot
S
afford to be bad at things at this age."
Skiing is something I will not do. I've cross country skied once, terrible. Downhill skied, never, not interested. I'm too clumsy. I'm too clumsy for downhill skiing. It's not for me. We we already just like set the stage for this episode. People are like, "What are these 2 gonna talk about today?" We're talking about authenticity. Okay, first of all, you wrote a book this year. It's right over there, which I wish I could reach it. Okay, good. It's called Let Them See You. You wrote a damn book. It's been on my bucket list to do for so long. I'm actively trying to work on one right now. What prompted you to write this book?
I think because I used to get a lot of comments from specifically older Black women that would ask me the question, like, "How did you learn this so early on in life?" I think specifically as Black women, we are really, really taught to be a specific kind of way and
Mm,
to show up softer and nicer and phone voice and smiley and giggly, and I stopped doing it in my 20s. And so I kept thinking about, like, what if I had actually learned this at 15, at 16, at 18, at 19, shit, at 21? Like, how much trauma would I have saved myself, not only in my work life, but also in my
mm.
personal life if I had just learned that being Black is not the antagonist. It is not the thing that should keep me out of rooms. It is not the thing that is working against me. The thing that works against me is the system. And it doesn't actually matter how I show up because the system will always see me as a Black woman. There is no hiding that. I say this all the time, like, I am Black before anything else because it is simply the first thing you know about me, whether you want to or not. All of the other stuff you might learn because I can't manage to shut up. But even if I am not
Same.
speaking, you recognize that I am Black. And
Yeah.
so I think for me, learning how to really cope with that, and come to terms with that was a journey because it also meant I had to unlearn all this terrible stuff that I thought about myself because in thinking that about myself, guess what? And then I thought about the people in the world around me.
Yeah. The unlearning piece of it, I think, is kind of the hardest, and it's interesting watching, like, Gen Z kinda get into corporate America and be like, "Here's how we're gonna be authentic and different," and I'm like, I have so much trauma from entering the workplace as a millennial and being told by every manager, like, not to speak up, not to be different, not to look different, like, being told how to do my hair and my skirt being a certain way because my body looked a certain way and that wasn't appropriate. And I'm just like, but a girl over there is wearing like a skirt shorter than mine. How come it's different for me? And so I just think like that unlearning is a constant thing we're doing. And I feel like grateful that I get to do it, but it's kind of hard. You have to like retrain your brain in a major way.
I unfortunately had to have mine in a very public reckoning kind of way. So,
Oh,
fun fact about me, the first time I went viral was not on LinkedIn. I went viral at 24-ish, for dating a racist, a wild racist. The video went super viral because I was a baby and didn't know how to use the internet, to be clear. And I had been in this really volatile, very physically abusive relationship, very emotionally abusive relationship, and he was just like a straight up racist, like straight up terrible guy. But when I got home, like I literally left Texas in the middle of the night with nothing I owned, just my dogs, and a TV out of spite, and drove myself home and like lived in a secret apartment for like a year. But I had posted this video because I had this if I go missing file. And so I posted this video on the internet that was just like him berating me and calling me the N word several times. And it was really to talk more about, at the time, the political climate, and that there were some people who vote in politics because this is actually how they feel. It's not because of the reasons that they say, whether it be financial or fiscal or whatever it is because this is actually how they feel. And that was for my my Facebook friends. No, mm-mm. My mom called me the next day and she was like, "Hey, they're talking about your breakup on XM radio," and I was like, "What?" So I log into my Facebook,
what?
all of a sudden my post has 400,000 likes, and I was like, "Oh, no." And then it was like a whirlwind. All of a sudden, it was on BuzzFeed and Occupy Democrats, and every news outlet you could think of has picked this up. And very quickly, the thing I learned as a very chameleon-y 24-year-old, I very much harped on the fact that I was biracial. I was like a special little star. Never called myself black. Only said I was mixed or biracial. Wore my hair very straight. Wore a lot of very ugly loafers. Wore a lot of polo shirts.
Same.
Not great. A lot of khakis. But the thing that I learned through this was everything that I posted, regardless of the fact that, like, he is clearly the antagonist in this story, made me the antagonist because I was black. So this thing that I'd been running from for my whole life, guess what? It was still the only thing anyone knew about me.
Yeah. Wow, I think I knew this story. I feel like when you were talking about it, like, was coming up in my brain that you've told maybe I read it somewhere, that's probably how I knew you before, but what a wild thing to experience at 24 too. I feel like I had not the vocabulary to describe anything at 24.
No. And you'll laugh the other day. So TikTok has like implemented like an AI feature that I haven't figured out, but I accidentally AI searched my own name.
Okay.
It was like the girl who outed her boyfriend for being a racist. And I was like, that's what AI pulls up about me at this.
You're like, "Anything else, please? I wrote a whole book about authenticity in work. I've worked in HR. I've done so many different things. Why
Like
this
even
one thing?"
even just the New York Times article about me talking about crab rangoon would have been better. Like
Okay. Wow, the lore of Madison Butler runs so deep. We're gonna learn so much about you through this whole time. I love that I also used your government name. I am sorry for that.
oh, we
I
love that.
w
We love that.
I went full government name. In my head, you are Madison Butler, but I can call you anything else you want. Okay, so you wrote this book about authenticity and how we show up at work. You've worked in HR. You've seen firsthand the systems we have to operate in. When you say things like authenticity at work, what do you think that means in 2026?
To me or
Yeah.
to them?
Ooh, to you and to them. Do both.
Okay, so let me start with them. I think companies have it completely wrong. I think when they say authenticity, they want Black History Month. Not this year, though. They didn't want it this year. They want pride. They want celebration. They want the warm, fluffy bits of people's personalities. And I say that because they want people's personalities. They don't want their identities. Those are two very different things. And often the personality you bring to work is not the personality you have at home.
Mhm.
And that is because it exhibits a level of control. If you can fit everyone into a box and you're like, but look, it's an authentic box. Everyone's so happy and cute and fluffy and whoo, um, then they still feel like they have a measure of control. True authenticity cannot be tethered because it is different for every person. But for me, when I truly think through authenticity, that is a terrible word for my lisp. Ew. Um, it is truly the fact that the human condition and the human experience is very, very messy. And that messiness transcends age, it transcends position, it transcends how much money you make, and it only becomes more complicated the more marginalized your identity is. It is not the, like, happy little bits about your life, it is the heartbreaking stuff. It is the stuff that weighs you down at work. It is the stuff that you go to the bathroom and cry about in between breaks. And for me, authenticity as an organization means understanding that people operate in the universe that they live in, and not everyone lives in corporate universe. Corporate is not the center of our universes. It is truly the thing that sustains our universes. For most people, if you said, "Hey, would you do this for free?" The answer is like, "No. No, I would not. I'm here because I have to pay my bills."
Yeah.
Surprise. And so I think the more that we start to understand that authenticity isn't just the fun stuff, but it is truly the things that impact how our people show up, the better we can understand them, the better we can understand their performance and what they need from us. Because as leaders, that is the hardest part. So what I try to explain to leaders is the behaviors we want to see in others is what we mirror ourselves. We cannot be a safe space for our teams if we don't first become a safe space for ourselves, which means you have to do all this shadow work first. You
Mm.
have to explore all of the things about yourself that you feel shame about, that make you feel yucky, that you would rather die than people find out about. Because that is actual authenticity, is truly understanding that you are not a person who is good or bad. You are simply a person who will do good and who will do bad for the rest of your life. But you have to be willing to look both of those things directly in the eye in order to lead well and lead authentically. And so I think COVID was really the first time that we really experienced one of those moments together. Everyone was going through the same thing at the same time. We were all one, lysoling our groceries and working from home and trying to manage kids and dogs and all of these things while being like, I coughed. Am I sick? I coughed. Am I sick? And everyone was experiencing this moment together where I think I like thought we turned a corner. I thought there was a moment where we were like on the right track, where
Me
we
too.
where we were going to balance humanity with work. But those moments are not just big things like COVID, and they're not always global. Sometimes they're communal, things like George Floyd, things like Breonna Taylor. There are things that are deeply personal, like divorce, sick parents, financial issues, addiction, all of these things that people bring to work whether we want them to or not, because you don't get to like take off your human sweater and put it in your cubby and are like, well, I'll pick that back up at 5 o'clock. And so for me, that is actually what authenticity is. It is not the fun bits, it is the bits that are truly breaking people's hearts.
Yeah, the why did we go weirdly sideways with the bring your whole self to work and then actually no one meant it?
They were like, "Be really happy. We want you to be happy, but, like, fake."
We actually like don't want you to bring any parts of the messy stuff. We actually just want you to show up and pretend like none of that is real.
Correct.
I had such an issue. I had such an issue with that.
Well, everyone gets it wrong, and then I have to keep explaining to people, right, like, there is a deep amount of privilege in the fact that I get to exist the way that I do. Because the onus is not on the individual to show up like this. It is organizations' jobs and responsibilities to create spaces that empower all kinds of people, which means you have to do it before they get there. Otherwise, you're just reactive. You have to proactively create an organization and a culture that is inviting and safe for everyone, which means you also have to hold your leadership and your teams accountable when they are the thing that is not safe.
Yeah, but organizations don't. You and I both know this. Organizations don't always do that. If you're lucky and you work at a small enough org, you can potentially enact that, but there are bad actors, I think, everywhere. And it's really hard, especially if your CEO sees them as like a revenue driver or a really critical part of the business, to be the HR person to say they're actively doing harm to people. Like I have been that HR person and I have had previous CEOs be like, too bad we need them.
And I actually think it's almost harder when you're at a small company because small companies operate in the family mindset. And sometimes they are just family because we love nepotism at small startups. And so they're not going to fire their cousin, their college roommate, the guy that they backpacked with that one time that they were like, you want to be a VP? You've never done anything but backpack, but VP sounds good, right? And so now you're stuck with these people. Where sometimes I do feel like at big companies, they are more likely to say, well, the risk is not worth the reward. You're super replaceable because
Yeah.
we're a bajillion people. So I think, it really is dependent on the leadership. But again, like how often is it HR that's being harmful?
So often. Every time I post anything about HR on TikTok, it gets the most engagement for people to hate on HR. And I'm like, you know what? Like as someone in HR, I also have been treated badly by HR while being in HR. Like, I think people forget that, and I don't know why. Maybe I do know why. That's probably an episode for another day. Like, we get such a bad rep no matter what. Like, it's like you could try your hardest to be a good HR team, and I do feel like sometimes employees are getting smarter to it where they're like, the HR person is trying, but obviously somebody's telling them no.
So I think there's 2 sides to it, which is one, so much of what we learn about the world that we exist in is fed to us very young through media. So the things that you learn about HR in movies and TV shows and sitcoms is pretty much that like we just fire people and you come into my office and you get fired. You get an email from me, you get fired. If you see
Yeah.
me, fired. So people already enter the workforce with that mindset. Then add in that there's a giant subset of this space that is intentionally harmful because their goal in all things is to just be a company protector. There are tons of people who get into this space because they love the proximity to power. They love the power dynamic that comes with their role. And unfortunately, that has been a large subset of this field for so long that we have very much an uphill battle to climb because there is this half of HR that is like business bootlicky. And then there's the other half of us that are like, I just want people to have a good time. You have a legal team, right? You have a compliance team. I very much feel like I want to be able to advocate for the people who are here because I don't know if you remember that is the reason you have revenue. And that I think is the problem because for so long it has been the other way. And so when we say that we are doing things differently, I think people are very tiptoey to be like, are they telling the truth or are they just, is it good PR? Is it warm and fluffy?
Mm. I mean, I'd like to think we're telling the truth. I think I'm telling the truth most of the time when I have to do these things, but I mean, it is really hard. That proximity to power is so interesting to me because maybe like early in my career, I found that alluring, but now I'm at the part of my career where I'm like, okay, I have this power. Now I have to enact change. Like, I need to enact change or my values system will just crumble because then nothing I value will actually exist in my life at work.
Exactly. And I think for me, it's never been about proximity to power. It is always really been about, like, I don't necessarily care about being important. I care that
Care.
people leave working with me feeling like, "Oh my god, this is possible, and this is what I'm going to expect from everyone I work with after me." Like, if I can set a standard for the fact that work it's not always going to be like, "I love working here," but it shouldn't be the thing you talk about at therapy every week, right?
No.
But for so many people, that is the case. And for me, I just feel like, especially for marginalized people, like we're sold this thing that like work has to suck. You have to be someone different. And there's no other way. And so if I can show people that there is another way on both sides, on both the business and the people side, then I feel like I've done my part.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so interesting. So I had this conversation with my dad like early when I started working in corporate America about like meritocracy because he was like very much like if you work hard, you will be rewarded for working hard. And I never got to have this conversation with him because I didn't really. I mean, he had his PhD in business management. He passed away in 2019. I talk about that a lot on this pod, but um, I didn't get to have the conversation with him where I was like, it doesn't matter how hard you work. Actually, sometimes it doesn't matter. Like, if you are from an underrepresented group, a lot of the times that actually does not work for you. Like the backpacking VP.
Exactly. And that's a real story. I have worked with a backpacking VP. His last title before VP was backpacker. Like that is a real life story. But I think the is like, for so long, we have been locked out of these rooms, and so as much as they wanted to scream meritocracy because it made them feel good, right? It made them feel like, "Oh, I worked harder than them." It wasn't. So much of what corporate America was initially built on was mediocrity, and when people's positions of power get threatened, they act out, they act up, they find ways to control the room, which is why we are all expected to show up in ways that lean as close to who they are as possible because people thrive in sameness, they do not thrive when they are challenged.
Yeah. That's such a good point. It brings me to the root of like everything you wrote about in your book was about being seen, but being authentic at work still feels so dangerous. Like what you said about privilege, I often tell people like I have the privilege to post the things that I can post. Not every single person has that privilege. Like I have that and not everyone does. And I think being authentic at work is still dangerous for a lot of people. Like why does it still feel like that?
I think exactly what I said. When people's positions of power feel threatened, they will do anything they can to control the room. And there's the other side of people who truly, madly, deeply think that we don't deserve to be there. And I think that is one of the hardest hills that I have to help people get over is like there are some people who truly do feel this way. And it doesn't matter how much I talk about anti-racism or anti-blackness. They thrive in it because it is what they believe and they want to believe it. Not everyone wants to do better. And a lot of what I talk about in the book is it's not just about letting other people see you because some people will never see you. They will never see you no matter what you do, but you have to see you. And I think that for me has been the most important part of this journey is making space and truly showing up for myself because then it does not matter how other people see me or how other people think of me. There are going to be people who don't like me forever, and
Always.
that's
Yeah.
fine. But it is much more detrimental if I do not like me.
Yeah. The haters are always going to hate.
And I am myself a hater. I'm a hater,
Same.
but I
I
come with data. Like if I have a reason, there's
I am
data.
an informed hater, to be very clear. If I hate something, you better believe I have citations on why I hate it with a long list of exactly why. I mean, it's so interesting because we were talking about, you were talking about like work, and some people they don't want to do better, right? I was on a panel, I think it was like last year, and somebody asked, like, how do you deal with being in rooms that like people clearly don't want you in? And everybody was like, the other people were like trying to give advice. And it got to me, and I was like, I don't want to be in those rooms. I was like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like maybe 5 years ago, I'd be like, I would fight tooth and nail to get in that room so that I could make change. Now I'm like, no, I want to be in rooms where people want me in them because that's where I can actually make change. That's where I feel valued versus trying to force my way into a room and enact an agenda that will never happen.
Exactly. And I think it took me a really long time to feel like that way. And you may get this as a content creator. Like when you first start creating content, you want to create content that people like. And then there's a day that it switches and you're like, I actually do not care if you like.
Yeah.
And what I realize is if I write content that everyone likes, then I'm actually not being authentic to me because not everyone likes me.
No.
So if everyone likes my content, guess what? Then I'm not turning it up to the level that I would like to turn it up to. But I think there's something to be said about I no longer want to sit in rooms where people hate me. And
Same.
honestly, like I think in the wildest way that this like truly came to like my brain is we all know I went through like a pretty ugly breakup a while ago now, but I like coming out of that went to a lot of therapy to really figure out that man hated me. And all I did was try to get him to like me, but that is what you do when you're in these rooms,
Mm,
is you can feel when people do not like you, and so you spend a lot of time molding and showing up and being smiley and bending over backwards and overextending to get them to like you, and it is almost second nature. I don't wanna do that. I want people who call me out on my stuff. They call me out when I'm not being authentic to me, and they love me the same whether I'm having a great day or a bad day.
yeah. One of my direct reports, her favorite thing to comment on is how I don't give a fuck if anyone likes me. She's like, it is the wildest thing. Like, you could care less. I was like, first of all, I could care less because I have to value myself. Like, I have to like me. Like what you said in the very beginning, like you have to do the work internally to even like be able to withstand this world. Like, why am I spending my time caring what you think about me? I need to care about what I think about me. And that's like not selfish. I don't think it's self-involved. I think it's like very self-aware because you probably better than anybody else know your flaws and know your strengths. And when you're coming into work, when you're working on your book, when you're pursuing the world, like I think you can show up so much better if you have that level of self-awareness on yourself.
Well, and I think a lot of us, pour into others as a way to avoid doing the hard work with ourselves. It's like when someone wants to be a DEI ally, but it's just another book club. It's just another post on the LinkedIn's, but they have never once reflected that work inward. Because again, we all have to realize like our bodies, ourselves, we are our longest standing asset. That is going to be your longest owned piece of real estate, your longest lived in home, your oldest friend. You should sit down and get comfortable with her, them, him, whoever it is, and spend some time getting uncomfortable because it doesn't benefit you to hate past versions of yourself and to refuse to look at them because there are lots of versions of me that I do not enjoy looking at.
Me either.
I don't mean physically. I just mean like she was ew. Um,
Mid-20s me.
yeah, mid-20s me was not great.
She's not it, honestly. She is much better now.
You can ask my mom. Freshman year version of me, not great either. Ooh, she was a bitch. But when I look back now, I want to be grateful for her because that version of me kept me alive in an abusive relationship. That version of me was doing exactly what she could with the tools that she had in her toolkit at the time. And that's what matters is do you continue to evolve your toolkit or do you shut it because it is hard to look at?
Yeah, what's in your toolkit? Like, as we're all thinking about how we evolve as individuals, also, like, as HR, we're always thinking about how we help others evolve. So, like, what's in the toolkit right now for you?
This Diet Coke, a crab
Fair.
rangoon. singular. But for me, it is being really aware of the things that I need in order to feel alive. It is very easy to let corporate America suck the soul out of your entire body. And we've all had the moment where you see the Slack message at 11 p.m. and you're like, absolutely not. And you're like, I'm going to flip the table. I'm going to send an anger. I'm going to quit right now. I never want to be at that point again. And so for me, it is boundaries. It is actively knowing that I can no longer identify as my job. I
Yeah.
identify as Madison Butler. I am not HR. I mean, I am HR, but I do HR. And I've had to really that for myself is like I'm a person who does things, but more importantly, I am a person.
Yeah.
And being very strong and intentional with my boundaries and then very strong and intentional with the space that I give. When I first came into the scene like 10 years ago, everyone wanted to be my friend, but it was because I had a large network and a large following and it took me a long time to learn that some people benefit from access to you, they do not care about you. And that to me is my biggest tool in my toolkit is learning who wants to be around me because it is beneficial to them versus people who like truly just like are my people.
Yeah. I think that's a really hard lesson to learn. And you have to like, there are people I'm not friends with anymore for that very same reason. There are relationships I've chosen to distance myself from for those very same reasons. But like that access, I think, is so important. You have to ask yourself, like, if you have a friend who's always asking you to do things for them, but never asking what they can do for you, that's like always the clearest sign to me. I'm like, friendship is a two-way street, just like relationships with work is a two-way street. If you feel like work is sucking everything out of you and giving you nothing in return, like that's a boundary you can pursue potentially by either leaving or like setting up better boundaries. And I don't know, it's a really interesting conversation that I feel like I in my mid-20s had no, again, vocabulary to talk about these things, but the older I get, I feel like my bullshit tolerance is like so low. It's like negative now. I'm like, I do not want this. I don't want to have to show up and pretend to be anything I'm not. And I like back to that privilege. I feel privileged that I get to say that. But at the same time, I think it like took a lot of work on my part. My best friends from college are still my two best friends. I just saw one this past weekend. And every now and then we reflect on what we were like 15, 16 years ago. And we just like laugh because not that I was like the problem child of the friend group, but I had a lot of emotions and very little control over my emotions. And I made everyone clear of all of this. My friends would say this about me today. And they also frequently say that I've done the most amount of growth because they're like, I was like, who would have thought? Like, I'm the responsible friend you all come to for HR advice. And they're like, yeah, we would have never thought that.
That's funny. I had like a very similar conversation with my best friend over breakfast the other day, and we've been friends since we were 4. So she's seen all the versions. And
Wow.
she
Was
said, I am the friend who evolves the most and the most often.
love that.
And that's true. There's been like she's met so many versions of me, and she has loved every single one, messy or not. And those are the kinds of people that I want in my life, right? Because not every version is going to be great. I'm sure that I'll have like versions now. I'll look back in 10 years and be like, you wore a raise hell hat on a podcast? Like, what's wrong with you? And
I love it.
but I think there'll be versions that you don't like forever because the goal is to continuously evolve. That is the whole
Yeah.
point of being a human, right? Is to continuously learn and continuously implement that learning. And it's the same for the way that we treat other people because we continuously learn more. If we all look at our pronoun usage 15 years ago, we'd all be like, ooh, that was bad. That was not thoughtful. But we didn't know what we know now. And so continuing to do that, I think, is very important for me. But there are some people who literally refuse because our egos are so strong that they'll stop the track right there.
I would say just like know those people and know you keep them at arm's length. My direct report's name is Madison. She's been on the podcast too, and one of our most infamous bits. It's to this day is like me mid crash out, like losing my mind, like on just like a rant about something and being like, and they could never be like me because I'm evolved. Okay. I am evolving every day. And she to this day, it's like one of our funniest bits where we'll like bring something up and she'll be like, "Oh, because you're so evolved." And I'm like, "You know what? Okay, it was a crash out of all crash outs. Like I have at least like one a year. She usually gets to witness them. It was a crash out, but at its core was exactly what you were saying. Like there is a never-ending need in me to like evolve and look at past versions of myself and like be better. And I don't know if that's a trauma response or something to talk to my therapist about why I'm always striving to be like a better version every day. maybe a trauma response, but I thought it was so funny because she did tell me yesterday night, probably the nicest thing she's ever said to me, literally yesterday, was like, "You are the one of the few people on this earth that I know that is always striving to be better than she was the day before." And I was like, say what you want about me, but that means the world to me." Like, she clearly saw what I was doing.
Yeah, like, and that's how I try to be too. Like, it's just me versus me, whether it's me in the gym or me as a human or me as a partner or me as a friend. Like, I want to be better than the version I was before. And I want to do, when someone tells me I've done something wrong, I want to do everything I can to make sure I don't do it again. Instead
Same.
of, I think it's really easy to be like, I didn't mean it like that. I can't be a racist. I have a black husband, blah, whatever the thing may be. Instead
So
of
many
being
people.
like, let me examine my behavior and figure out how I can do better the next time. It is that easy. Like, I try to, it is that easy. You
Yeah.
don't have to feel any type of way. We all get it wrong. And then you just move on. Fix it, move on. Fix it, move on.
Yeah. Even recently, I said something and I was like, "Hey," well, after I said the sentence, I was like, "Wait a minute, I actually need to take that back," because that was, like, not a thing I should have said out loud, and I was like, "Not appropriate. Let's talk about why." But what I think is interesting is, okay, you've worked in corporate America, you've met so many executives, whatever. Would you say that the average executive is more like you and I, where they're constantly trying to evolve and be better? Or would you say the average executive is maybe on the other end of the spectrum where they don't give a shit, they've gotten their proximity to power, and improvement is not on their agenda?
I don't have a microphone, but I do have this can of peaches. No, no, I don't. And I have a reason for that. Because I
Okay.
think when you come from a marginalized background, there is almost no shot that you have not been traumatized by work. And so there is this desire to do better by the people who come after you because you know what it is like to be them. The majority of CEOs and C-suite, just statistically, are white and they are male,
Yes.
which means they
Yes.
have not experienced trauma in the same way. And it is very hard to contextualize it when you have not experienced it. And so you don't quite understand the impact that you can have on people emotionally, physically, mentally. So you don't learn to do better because you don't know anything but what you are doing today. And when you've done nothing but backpack, how could the woods be mean to you? They can't. And so I think when you look at the people, and I'm not saying this is for all white male or women executives, but I
Yeah.
do think when you haven't experienced trauma like that, it is very hard to want to do better because you simply don't understand that it exists.
Yeah. And even when you try to explain it to them, they have to have a high level of empathy, right? And we already know that's like missing from the average person. So it's just, ugh, what? You're going to say the average person does have empathy? Don't even. I'm
No,
just kidding. No.
no, I am
It
not going to say that at all.
no, because there's, like, something very, self-individualistic about capitalism. Capitalism thrives off of us believing, like, I should only care about me, and I think that is when you start to, like, dissect the systems we work in and what they incentivize, you really do start to understand human behavior and leaders and the people you're encountering at work, and I think, like, it it makes so much more sense. Like, I don't get mad anymore when people show me who they are. Like, in my early 20s, I got so mad when people would show me who they were. I was like, "What do you mean you don't wanna be better? Like, don't you wanna, like, do this? And, like, you can't say that that's racist, and you can't say that that's sexist." And now in, like, my late 30s, I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like, that is just who you are. I'm gonna accept that. I'm not gonna try to change that. Like, if we have a good relationship, maybe I help you see the error of your ways, but that also has to be like a trust-based relationship where I can get through to you because I don't think you can get through to the average person." Back to like the callback of a lot of people don't want to be different.
Yep. And I think we learned that exact mentality in the rise and fall of DEI because we learned that all of these people popped into DEI because they saw a money grab. They did not see something they could solve for. They didn't see something they wanted to solve for. Having the problem made them money, so why would they solve for it? And I will die on that hill.
I
Is
was
that
about to
nobody
say,
cared. Everyone wanted to get rich.
I mean, they released a what was it, like, a New York Times article? Not that I love the New York Times anymore, but they released a New York Times article, I think in, like, 2023, where it was, like, how much money went into investment in DEI in 2020 and, like, what change actually happened, and, like, it showed that, like, not a lot of change actually happened.
Because you can't, and I used to say this all the time, like, you cannot change anything with a workshop, even if you charge $50,000 for it, because at the end of the day, DEI is self-work, and it has to be everyday work. So if your CEO doesn't give a shit and they don't go home and do the work, guess what? Nothing changes. And you cannot force people to care about other people. You can't teach that. You can write policy, you can write procedure, you can write a new handbook, you can do a silly little presentation. But if the people on the other side of all of that don't care or they don't enforce your policies, guess what? Nothing happens.
Yeah. What advice would you give an HR person who's currently in that situation?
The situation of not caring or
Yeah, like
there's
let's say their entire leadership team is just like, "We don't give a shit." Like, you bring up issue after issue about maybe a racist hiring manager, maybe a sexist coworker, and they don't wanna do anything about it. Hypothetical situation. What advice would you give them?
unfortunately, I think you have to make peace with that's the organization you work at. There is
Yeah,
only so much control you have, regardless of the power dynamic and the proximity to power you have in HR. You cannot control how other people feel about people. And you cannot teach care. You cannot teach empathy. People have to want that for themselves. CEOs want to have to lead cultures that represent empathy and care. You can't make them want it. And so many of them don't even have the space to want it because their cap table says they can't. So for me, I think it's you have to be okay with morally, this is what it is. I can impact change where I exist. I can do what I can control. So that means the way I show up, the way I treat people, the way I interact with my teams, the way that I help train and lead managers through coaching conversations and helping them soft skill up is what I have control over. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to like leave your job. Now is not the time.
no, yeah,
The
no,
advice
the
I
job
ever give
market.
anyone, but make sure that you are finding space to not hold on to that moral guilt that I know comes home with you. I just
Yeah.
had this conversation with someone recently is like they really struggle with the decisions that leadership makes because it
Mm,
feels morally against who they are. But what I try to, I have to explain is you're not making those decisions. They're not touching your hands. Even if that means you have to work through those decisions because it is your leadership team, you have to let that go at the end of the day. Because again, we are just people who can control what we can control. And unfortunately, we all have to go to work to pay our bills. And so if you can't leave, I need you to make peace with it, but I also need you to not beat yourself up over it either.
yeah, like, pour into yourself. It's hard though because it feels like of all the leadership roles at any organization, I would say HR has, like, the most emotional baggage of any given role. Like, when you have to do a layoff, when you have to fire people, like, you don't think I sit there and think to myself, like, "I hope that person has enough money to pay their bills." Like, these are thoughts I, like, actively have every time I have to do that, and I think that emotional baggage is really hard. It was, like, burning me out for the longest time because I felt so deeply about decisions that I felt like I had no control over, but I had to execute, or I had so much empathy for the person on the other side of the table, and it was, like, eating me alive inside, and it took, like, a lot of work for me for it to not be like that. Like, I started setting a rule with myself, like, when I close the computer, I'm gonna try to, like, let go of those feelings as much as I can, so I can then go do good in my world, in my community, in my family, with my friends.
I think one of the things, and actually Aubrey Blanche and I had this conversation, which was
Love her.
at the point that I don't feel that way and I don't care, then it's time for me to leave because I'm completely desensitized. I'm
Yeah,
proud of myself that I have that level of emotion and that level of empathy because that's exactly the person I want to be. And I also step away after things like that. And I coach my hiring managers or whoever's in the call with me to also step away because these are humans and you're also human. And it is very normal and natural to worry about their well being after this because when you term someone, whether it's a layoff or something egregious, whatever it is, you're not saying, I hate you and I want you to have a bad life, right? You're
yeah,
not saying, I hope your house gets foreclosed on. But we all know that those are the potential outcomes of situations like that. And so at any point where I feel like that's a normal conversation for me, I need to get out of HR.
yeah. I once worked with a leader who was, like, so callous and, like, flippant about, like, people, like, really just viewed them as, like, numbers, and was like, "Oh, well, they should be scared if we fire them." And I was just like, "Why are you like this?" Like, I just I don't want to ever be like that because there's a lot of humanity that can be brought into HR where I feel like there are other people, bad actors, who will act like it's an inhumane job and will treat people terribly. I don't think I used that word right. Anyways, okay, we've been talking about we talked about authenticity, your book, all authentic leadership, what makes people self-aware, not self-aware. Um, how can people build authenticity at work, like as a system, without turning it into weird cultural theater, like the "bring your whole self to work" shit? Not that.
No pizza parties?
No, no.
So for me, it is actually a business problem, not an HR problem. So let's start there. Authenticity, culture, DEI, inclusion, none of that is an HR problem or a talent problem. It's not a talent branding. It is not PR. So we can start there. But for me, if you truly want to have an organization and a culture that invites everyone to the table, it means everyone has to be thought of when you're making business decisions. It has to be built into the foundation of your business. It is not an umbrella. It is not a blankie that you take back off when suddenly we're in the red, right? I think we saw a lot of that in the last 2, 3 years.
Oh
The
yeah,
economy was concerningly iffy, and so people were like, "We don't care anymore." That is not how authenticity, culture, and safety work. If you want to build an organization that is safe, it has to be safe at all points of the organization. It has to be safe when you're doing really well. It has to be safe when you're doing really bad. It has to be safe when you're in growth mode. And I think those are the hard things to manage, which means it has to be built into every decision in every business unit within your organization without it just falling on A, HR, or B, you're like, we put together some ERGs and we're going to ask people to do free labor.
no. Will not be doing that. I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. It has to be baked in and at every single level. And I think it gets really hard sometimes to do that, but like it's not impossible. But I also think like you got to find out real quick what the leaders are on board with or not. Like cultural theater, if like you HR are saying one thing and then the leaders are behaving otherwise, it's going to be so evident and clear to the employees that like, oh, we can't behave the way our HR person is saying we can behave because these other people are doing the opposite.
Correct. And again, culture, we all know, starts at the top, not at the bottom. So if you have a bunch of really cool people sitting at the bottom of your organization, but everyone in leadership sucks, guess what? Your whole company probably sucks because they set the tone for how people show up. And so for me, like so
Dead.
much of that work, that self work has to be done by your C suite. If they are not doing the self work, it will be reflected in every business unit because they are at the tippy top of business units. And if employees are just mirrors, they're going to show up the way that you think that they think you want them to show up. And if that's authentic, that's authentic. If you come in a suit and tie every single day and you never smile and you never have a bad day, guess what? That's how they think they have to be as well. You never take time off, they're never taking time off. And so it is unfortunately a trickle down effect, which is not really my favorite term, but I can't think of a better way to describe it. If your C suite doesn't have it together, then they don't give people the opportunity to have it together.
That's a good point. Okay, if someone listening to this wants to start practicing authenticity in a way that is safe and maybe strategic, what would be the first move they should make in the next 2 weeks?
Practice it with yourself. I think a lot of us are very far from understanding our true needs. I think it is very, very frequent that we are living through the lens of our parents, through society, of our boss, of our partner, of our friend. And when we really pull that apart, we start to learn that we have made decisions based on other people's wants, needs, and level of comfortability for our entire lives. And so, one of the things that I do very frequently is I create a spreadsheet, which I know we all love spreadsheet, but it's uh, my need to have, nice to have, cannot have. And when I think about what life
Dang.
should feel like for me,
Okay.
that is right. Like, so for me, nice to haves are like an Equinox membership. I don't have one. It's a nice to have. But like a cannot have for me is anger in my home, the ability to not like, I can't go to the gym. All of these things are things that impact my ability to find and seek joy. And I do that in my regular life. I do that in jobs when I'm interviewing. I think about what I want out of an organization, but like I really focus on that cannot have column much more than I focus on anything else. Because those are the things that are going to, again, suck the entire life out of me and make me miserable. And when you are miserable, it is inherent that you start to shrink because you start to not feel worthy. You start to not feel confident and you start to feel like there are only certain versions of you that deserve to be seen. And unfortunately, those are typically the versions that lean into dynamic, dominant populations.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good piece of advice. Um, Thank you for giving me so much food for thought today. I feel like I just had therapy. I feel like this was therapy for me for the last hour. And therapy for our listeners, not to make fun of therapy, very serious. Very grateful for it in my life. But this felt really it felt like really being seen, which is literally what your book is all about. So, for people who are looking to get in touch with you, this is now a bit I do. I know it's LinkedIn, but like for people who are looking to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you, work with you, hire you, all that great stuff?
Well, you caught me on a good day. I just launched my coaching practice today, which ironically I've been coaching for years and I just never told anyone because whatever. But so I launched crashoutwithme.co.
Love.
And it is really the idea that a crash out is actually not a bad thing. It's a data point. It is starting to learn exactly what your body is telling you you no longer need and what no longer serves you. And how can we be strategic with our crash outs instead of using them to, send your boss an I quit message without a job lined up. So you can find me there, or you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at madison@bluehairedunicorn.com.
Yeah. All the places. They can follow you on TikTok too, actually.
I'm also on
So,
Instagram.
um,
I'm just, a regular millennial on the internet.
we are, yeah, you can find us. Just Google. Just
Well, don't
Google.
Google because then you're just gonna find that I outed my ex for being a racist.
Or you
That's
could go into the Madison lore. Okay. The lore, the lore is there. That was so bad. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love talking to you. You'll be back. This is always so much fun. And I'm such a big fan of what you're building because I do have at least one crash out a year. So, and I really learn from each one. So I'm running on my basic schedule. So expect my crash out midsummer, just throwing it out there. I can't wait. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm always happy to be here.
Hell yeah.